What up, guys? It's Dr. Vic, and you are listening to the Mindful Experiment podcast. If you're checking this out on YouTube, we do share each podcast that I do. I do a video version of it also. You can check it out at my YouTube page. At the show note, it's the links in the show notes. But if you're curious, just look up Dr. Vic Manzo and you will find me there. Subscribe, keep up with all the posts that we do, even with some of the interviews we're doing. Some of them are videos, some of them are not. If they are audio, if they are video, I do share it on my website, empoweryourrally.com/blog to get to the podcast. And then I also put it on my YouTube channel. Excited to be with you guys here today. What an amazing week last week. Thanksgiving, giving thanks. I hope you had an opportunity to do that, just to give thanks, what you're grateful for, what you appreciate in life. Because my message last week was that you cannot, gratitude is the right attitude to get to the higher altitude, or something along that lines. It's my quote. I should know this, right? But long story short, I had a quote where I share that, and it was my message throughout all of last week about appreciation, gratitude, and really just connecting with self and really be able to, if in order to achieve more, experience more in your life and what you desire, you must be appreciative for what you have. And so with that being said, this week has been, I was thinking in my head, like, I got a mindfulness workshop coming up on December 11th. Check it out. Link in the show notes. You can register and you can tune in, check in. I'll be talking about just mindfulness 101. I'm going to share some tips, some tricks of how to connect, how to be mindful, the beauty behind it, the science behind it, the spirituality behind it, and then get into the aspect of teaching and sharing of how to know when you're in the present moment. What are cues? What are tips? What are tricks to help you in that process? And today I'm going to share just a small portion of all that to really help you grasp and understand about turning in, turning on, tapping in, turning on, the essence of who we are. In my book called Rediscover Your Greatness, it was my first one that I wrote, I talk about this, I think it was chapter 8, 9, roughly around there, when I get into the aspects of energy, and I talk about how everything in life is a frequency. And we have mapped this out. Even we understand that thoughts are concrete. Now, they're not concrete in the sense of the physical realm, but they are concrete in the sense of they hold a frequency. Now, you know this, you've experienced this, even though you may not have truly understood that this was going on. For a moment, you can sit there, and I want you to think of something, a thought, something that's not the greatest, has a negative vibe to it, something that triggers you from a negative emotion or a lower vibrational emotion, okay? Get that in your head, and when you do, I want you now to start to feel your body. How do you feel? Do you feel good? Are you vibing higher? Or did you kind of get a little lowered? Did the energy get heavier? Did you feel heaviness in your chest? Maybe something in the stomach? What shifted and what changed? Okay? That's the power of a thought. Because frequencies are everything. Nikola Tesla said it best. If we start to see everything from frequencies, vibrations, and energy, and we start to look at everything from that perspective, we will transform in 10 years what we've done in the last 100. And there's a lot of truth behind that, because everything in life is a frequency. We have even mapped out the human body in frequencies to know when it's in a disease state, when it's in a health state, and when it's in a healing state. And so it's pretty powerful and really cool stuff. And so, but knowing the thought, right? We can shift gears and go the opposite. Think of something that makes you happy. What really makes you excited? What gets you passionate? What triggers you in a positive way, right? And when you get that feeling inside you and you really tap into that, how do you feel? How's your body feel? What are you noticing? What's different? Are you feeling a little lighter? Do you got a little pep to your step? Do you feel like you have a little bit more energy? Or you're noticing just a shift of a little bit of like more opening up and more expansionness from the heart? This is all real. It's not in your head. This is all real stuff. This happens. And if you're not feeling this, that's okay. We have work to do, like anyone else. And so it's learning this tool and understanding how that works. Thoughts are real. They exist. And once we, as a human collective, start to grasp that and understand that thoughts create our reality, in the sense of what you hold in the mind's eye is what you're going to see, gives eyes to see. Those are going to be the things that, and my dog's agreeing with this, so I apologize. Those are going to be the things that once we make that shift, we can transform our world, and we can transform it quick. 10 years, it'll be a whole different world than where we are today. But the thing is understanding this and understanding it like a technology, using it like a technology. The one thing in my journey through chiropractic school, I grew up Roman Italian Catholic. I talk about this in my first book. And my journey, I walked through the questions I had, the things I challenged, not from a negative, just not believing state. It was just more of a state of wanting to know more. I felt there was more than what I was being told. And there came a point in my life where I studied other religions. I wanted to understand. It was very cool, and I share this all in my book. But long story short, when I got to chiropractic school and I started learning about the body, I'll never forget embryology class. And I started to learn how 2 cells turn into 4, then 8, then 16, 32, 64, 128, and etc. And I started to see how they specialize. I started to see how things started to develop in a very systematic way. When I started to learn the DNA, when I started to learn all these different things, all I kept seeing was God and God's creation. Now you can call it many different names. It doesn't have to be God. It could be universal intelligence, innate intelligence, your soul governing this and orchestrating this, whatever it is that you want to call it. The name doesn't really matter. The point is, what for me, I started to see the beauty of the work and just starting to understand and going, nature is absolutely stunning. Nature is just absolutely amazing. And for me, it was one of those things where it blew my mind. And I started to have an appreciation to nature and laws. And I was like, okay, there's a lot I need to learn here, more than I ever thought. And so that's really intrigued me in so many ways that opened the door to start looking at, okay, if this is true here, how does this relate in other realms? And if that's true there, then it has to relate in other areas too. And I started to look for patterns and how they connect. And this were universal laws. I got into this and how I look for universal principles. And that's why when I'm working with a client, it doesn't have to be a business owner. When I'm coaching for my online classes, it could be an entrepreneur. Doesn't have to be. I do have people who utilize more for life coaching, but I use it in different parameters and different aspects of their life, because my whole concept is, how do I share universal principles to create perfect balance as much as we can, perfect harmony, coherence, and things like that with what you want to create, how you want to live your life. Okay, how do we connect the two? Create a synergistic relationship in that to where we can make that happen. And so it was very fascinating, because through the process, the reason there's a reason why I'm sharing this story. I started to have some disconnection because I was studying energy medicine at the time, or energy healing and energy principles and techniques and so forth. And I was into spirituality, learning about spiritual laws and understanding the healing realms that, back in my day growing up was all woo-woo stuff, and it was way out there, or black magic. And I don't practice black magic, but it was stuff that was like considered not good to do. And I wanted to go down that path because I wanted to see what that meant. And what was happening was I couldn't connect the dots. I'm like, okay, if we're intuitive and I have all the answers within, how do I use that? And it wasn't, how can I tap into that? Is it a feeling? Is it just made up in my head? How can I explain that to someone? And then I had a teacher in school who was talking about who was sharing this energy stuff. And he said that you have intuition, your sixth sense, seventh sense. He goes, that's not made up in your head. He goes, those are physiological responses that you have that you're aware of. And I was like, hold up, what do you mean by that? And so I asked the questions I learned, and I started to understand how everyone has different realms. So if you've been listening to my podcast for a while, if you've done coaching with me, or if you've been on my online classes, you'll hear me talk a lot about this. Or my second book, A Walk in the Dark, I talked about this too, where how you have to develop your intuition. You have to develop this tool. It's a tool that we have, and everybody has it. It comes in different forms, different ways, but everybody has it. And so it was one of those things where I started to learn, what's that feeling? What's that aspect? What's that thing that I get within to help me, guide me, help me understand a little deeper about myself or my path and things along that nature. And this is different. This is foreign for me because I used to be this way when I was younger, but it's been so long. I had such a huge disconnect in my life from putting that away that I forgot what that was. And it's been a long time coming to where I've kind of turned the page in the corner on this. And now I'm at a place where I'm like, okay, I let this guide me. I trust this process, and I continue to move forward with it. And so the thing about when it comes to your life and achieving what you want, dreams, etc., you have to tap in. You have to get used to the feelings. Now, for everyone, it's different. For me, it's an energy within my chest and my stomach. There's like a feeling that I get. When it's a negative, I feel it in the stomach. When it's a positive, I feel it in the chest. I get expansion. And so I've learned to trust that. And it's like wavelengths. And sometimes it puts me on a path that I'm like, man, how did I get here? And not in a good way. But then I see later how I needed to go there and how I had to learn lessons. And then I can continue moving forward. And what it has done for me, and you guys have to understand, if this is your first time listening, I'm a type A driver personality, task goal oriented. I want to get things done, get out of my way. I'm like a running train, and I want to get things moving. And especially when I start moving, do not get in my way. But one of the things I've learned is that it's fun this way, the other way, where I'm just like trusting the process and going with it. It's like, I have 3 books I'm going to write 2021. So be ready for it. I know it sounds crazy. It's ambitious goals. I'm going to do this. Every 4 months, I'm going to be writing a book. And somebody said, where do you have the time? How are you going to do this? What are you going to write about? How do you know what's going to come up? I don't know. I have no idea. It'll come to me. And they're like, what do you mean? Don't you have a plan? I'm like, I do. I know one's on health. The other 2 are mindsets and quantum physics and spiritual laws and things that are going to help people really understand who they really are, even from a deeper level, different perspective than what I've been talking about in my first 2. And they're like, oh, so you have a plan? How are you going to go? How are you going to outline? I'm like, I don't know. So it's all this mental stuff, right? And I'm sitting there going, nah, I'll figure it out. Just like I did for my second book. I had no idea what I was going to write about. I knew it came to me in November. It was 2018 in November. It came to me, was it 2018? Yeah, 2008. I wrote my first book in April 2018. In November 2018, something started to come to me, and all of a sudden it was like, hey, darkness, think about it. And I was like, okay, cool. And then by February, I was like, I think that's my next book. And then all of a sudden, I started writing, and in the summer, got it done. And by the fall, launched out, done 20-something days to write the book. I'm not saying that that's something not to impress you or anything like that. It was just when the time comes, I just do the work. And so it's one of those things where, it's trusting this process in life, just trusting the ebbs and flows and just trusting to tap in. Because when you start to understand this can guide you and transform your life. It can tell you if you're in a good state or not a good state. It can tell you where you've been paying attention, where's your focus has been, how you letting things affect you. It can tell you when you're distracted, not distracted. It can tell you when you're off course or on course. It can tell you if there's someone lying to you or not lying to you. It can tell you if you're in the path of what your soul and what you decided to come here and learn or not. It can teach you and share with you where you need to go and what decisions you need to make. It can help you when you're in the set of darkness or when things are hard in your life or you're going through the struggles, the ups and downs, the obstacles. 2020 has been one heck of a year for anybody, and no one in the planet has not been affected by this in some way, shape, or form. And so when you look at this, there's also that aspect. But how can that be a blessing? How could you navigate? How can you grow? How can you expand? And these are the things that when you tap in and turn on, you can really start to shift and change and start to become the dance of ebb and flow of life like a child does. Right? You don't see children mapping. Tell me a 7-year-old that sits there and they map out their day and what they're going to get done, all the tasks they want to do, and so forth. That's a left brain, analytical, logical process. Children are more like, if you give them a list, they're like, I don't know, I'm just going to do the first couple that are fun. I'm going to focus on this and the heck with the rest. And some people go, well, no, as an adult, you need to do all these things because it's part of being an adult. Well, it depends. To a certain degree, I agree and disagree. I learned in business this principle, and it really helped me in other areas of my life, is that do the things you love and delegate the rest that you don't like, right? Because there's always someone that the things you don't like to do, they do. And you find that person and you let them do what they like to do. And then if we work together as a team, we'll find out that all our strengths, when we do the things we all like to do, it really will transform your life. And so that's a business principle. I use it as much as I can. Things I don't like to do, I'm paying somebody. I'm not wasting my energy on that. It's not that it's not important. I've done the grind. I've done the hustle. I've done all that. And I have no problem doing it. The thing is, what's my time better worth? What is the things I enjoy more? Because what happens is if I do the things I enjoy more, what do you think happens? It feeds into my passion. My passion feeds me and it creates my own inspiration. I don't need external motivation. I have inspiration from within. Inspire means in spirit. What that means is when you're connected with your soul, when you're connected with your higher self, your higher truth, your higher, your true soul is what I like to call it. That's when all of a sudden you're tapped in, turned down, ready to rock and roll. That's what athletes call being in the zone, where all of a sudden things are just clicking. You're just like flowing. Okay. And that's the beauty of this process and learning how to get there. Okay. It's the most powerful tool that we have. It's the one thing that can advance all technologies. But the best that you can understand, our bodies alone, this is what I was trying to get to also with the story about learning about the body, is that I realized how amazingly, beautifully powerful and how technologically advanced our bodies are. You can put all the supercomputers in the world, put them all together, and they still can't compete with the body. You can look at the plumbing of the heart, right? The heart, all the vessels, the capillaries, the arteries, the veins, all that. When you look and see how amazingly powerful the heart is, it works on average 9 hours a day. That's about on average. Now you may say, hold on, my heart beats all the time. True. It makes one contraction and it relaxes. So you add up all the contractions that it does, it's about roughly 9 hours. So, I always used to think the heart works all day long. But it's one of those things where it's just like sleep, right? You think you go to sleep and your brain goes to rest. No, your brain actually activity goes up higher. And so it's one of those things where when you look at your life and things that you do, understand that you have the most amazing technology within you. Start using it. Start learning how to do it. Yeah, a phone's important. Apps are important. All those things are great. It's a way of living. But if you can't master this, and if you can't master yourself, if you can't master your mind, if you can't master how this body works, then you're always going to be looking externally and never finding the truth of what you desire. You'll never find the freedom. You'll always be a prisoner of someone else. Because when you don't learn these tools and you don't utilize them in your life, it starts to play a massive role where control can come in, manipulation can come in, other things, other beings who do understand how this works can affect you in some way, shape, or form. So you want to tap back into your power and stop giving it away. You want to tap back into yourself and start realizing the beauty and the power and the strength of who you really are. Because who you really are is a creator. Who you really are is somebody who's a producer of your life. You're the author of your book and the writer of your book. You're the actor, the main actor, actress of your book, and so much more. You choose every single day how you want to play. And if you don't choose how you want to play, if you don't set your intention every day, well, guess what? You're letting the world set it for you. And now all of a sudden, then you wonder 2, 3, 4 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, you're not where you want it to be. Many times I hear stories of, I had dreams of being this when I got older, and then just life took me a different way, and this is where I went. And I'm like, okay, are you happy where you are? Well, I wish, I have some, not that I live regrets, but, and they go through this process, right? And I'm like, stop BSing yourself. Just be real. It's either A or B, and then choose what works best for you. And know that if you're living a life that you don't desire, you can still make a choice. You can still change that. You can map out a plan, 6 months, 3 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever, where you want to be in 5 years, where you want to be in 10 years, and look at a plan and develop how you're going to make those changes slowly. Some people have the blessing and the opportunity to just make a change and move forward. Some have to work through the process. I always tell people at the end of the day, who cares the time frame? Who cares how long it takes? The point is you wanted to go to change your life. You wanted to be here or there. You wanted to get this level or that level. Whatever it takes to get there, who cares? As long as you got there. Right? I remember playing video games. This is something I didn't learn. I knew this knowing this as a kid, didn't know it as an adult. Playing video games, right? I'd be like, who's the fastest to get there, right? We always worried about who was the fastest. And there was a point though when I was a kid where I'm like, I don't care how long this takes. I want to just beat this. I don't care how long it's to take this level. I don't care how long it takes me to be here or here. I just want to have fun in the process and do it. And that's what I enjoyed more, is just learning and how to get better and better and play with friends and compete and get better and better. But as an adult, I lost that. And it was more about how can I just continue to improve? How can I get to the next level? How fast can I get there? And it all became about quickness rather than just getting there, right? I'd rather just get there and then learn and enjoy the process rather than saying, in this amount of time, I need to be there. Right? Driver mentality, type A, task-oriented. So tap in. Start to play with your intuition. Start to learn it, okay? There are great books out there that you can read that talk a lot about this, like Dr. David Hawkins' Power versus Force. I talk about it in my first book a little bit. Amazing book. It transformed my life. It really put things on a page to understand frequencies and vibrations. He talks at conscious technology, the level of consciousness where someone is. I just took the term and I just made it more resonated with me, which looked at vibrations and frequencies. That's true and not true. It's really, it's his work, so I leave it as consciousness level. But it's one of the things where I've looked at that from perspective and tried to look and see how can I understand how the world works and understand how everything's frequency, how to understand that everything's a vibration, and that vibration opens up the door to an experience. And when you vibe at a certain level in alignment, you start to experience that. That's why manifestation, I'm not a big fan of. I'm more of an alignment. How do you align? How do you attune? How do you connect to what it is you want to have in your life and experience? And that's a vibe. And you have to work on that vibe to build yourself up to get to that level. So that's what I got for you guys. I hope this was inspiring in some way. I hope it was able to give you an opportunity just to understand, how powerful you really are. You're the most amazing technology that has existed. We have it right within us, and we're always focusing outside. It's time we start looking inside. If you want to create the new world and shift away from all the stuff, because right now we have a lot of talking heads, a lot of agendas, a lot of narratives being pushed. And the thing is, if you're tapped in and turned on, you see behind the noise. You see between the lines. You see behind the energy behind the message. You see the whole game being played. Some people call that being awake or awoke, or whatever that may be. The thing is, though, you can't be manipulated as much because you see what's going on. You're tapping into a different dimension or a different energy of it, a substance that a lot of people don't experience. A lot of people don't really think it, not that they don't think it's not true, but they're just believing in what they're hearing, right? And that's a left brain experience instead of let's tap into the right brain and see what that has to say. Let's tap into some other levels of perspectives and consciousness levels and informations that we can grasp from intuition, which taps into the infinite, and will be able to get us more information than what we're experiencing. So I appreciate you guys. If this is the first time you're listening to the podcast, please subscribe. Go ahead and check out other podcast episodes we have. If you like some of the podcasts, if you like this episode or other ones, pay it forward and share it with someone that you know that could benefit. And as always, to all my subscribers, I want to truly thank you guys. It's been an awesome ride. I've been enjoying this. We've been, in the last 3 to 4 months, we made a decision, back in 2019, this podcast was actually one of the top 5 in Canada, UK, and Australia in self-help, and top 15 in the United States. And now we're like, since the algorithm changed with iTunes, we got out of it. We haven't been back. And I was like, that's not important to me. I just want to go ahead and just continue producing something that's great for people to help change their lives, shift their perspective, raise their consciousness, because that's my vision, is to help individuals raise their consciousness to really, truly know who they really are and know that there are no rules to life except the ones you create. And what's interesting about that process is now we're back on page. We're like, you know what? We're going to keep producing great content and doing what we do. We have great people that we're interviewing, amazing list coming up. We have continually coming out. And we're hitting some ranks now. In Israel, we were in top 50 in the last 30 days. Canada, top 100, 130. UK, 132. Taiwan was 62. And this was the last 30 days. Top podcast in mental health. And so please share. Please like the podcast, subscribe. It really helps get this message out for people to really grasp and really understand the power of, understanding the mind in a deeper level and so much more. And I can't thank you guys enough. I appreciate all the listeners for tuning in. And as always, if you like to listen to the YouTube channel, subscribe to my YouTube channel, click that little bell for notifications. And you can go to just look up YouTube, Dr. Vic Manzo, and you'll find my podcast there. So want to thank you guys. Until next time, keep rocking and rolling.